Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brittany Barros. I am the Policy Support Intern for FosterClub, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, What is AFCARS anyways? Today, we will be going a brief overview on what the Children's Bureau recommendation is for AFCARS and what we can do as advocates to implement an innovative change in regards to AFCARS. So I would like to introduce our two panelists today that will be speaking on this webinar. They're both 2019 Foster Club All-Stars. The first one is Melvin Roy from Virginia, as well as Cassidy Gaheen from Montana. Please welcome our two panelists.
Hi, my name is Melvin Roy, and I'm 18 years old from Virginia. I currently am a 2019 All-Star. I attend Old Dominion University, where I study criminal justice with a minor in human services with the hopes of eventually working for the FBI. And just a little background about what I'm doing at Old Dominion. I currently started a group for foster youth ages 14 to 18 to help them see that there is life after high school.
Hi there, my name is Cassidy Gaheen. My pronouns are she and her. I'm 19 years old and I'm from the beautiful state of Montana. Right now, I'm currently a sophomore at Montana State University, where I'm studying in microbiology and immunology and minoring in political science. What I plan on doing is changing practice and policy back to my home state.
All right, so now I'm going to go over the agenda. So first on the agenda, we have the welcome. Then we have an overview and intro. Then we're going to talk about what is AFCARS, how is it used, the December 2016 final rule, and current developments, notice of proposed rulemaking. Then we're going to talk about why does it matter, and then we're going to talk about an advocacy opportunity, making a comment, and then we're going to go over any questions.
So what is AFCARS? Why is it so important? The main question I should be asking all of you, why should we care about AFCARS? Here's the reason why. It tells us what ages are going into the system. What are the trends, meaning why are children going into care? What is the background and ethnicity of the children? What kind of funding should be provided or given? And how many children are in foster care? Now, for the actual meaning of what AFCAR stands for is the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System. It collects case-level information from state and tribal Title IV-E agencies on all children in foster care and those who have been adopted with Title IV-E agency involvement. For those in the audience that do not know what Title IV-E is, it's federal money that's given to tribes.
Next, we will be discussing examples of data collection elements. So one thing is demographic information on the foster child as well as the foster and adoptive parents. Demographic information includes the age of the child, the race and ethnicity, and also like the race and ethnicity of the foster parents. The next bullet point is the number of removal episodes the child has experienced. That talks about how many times the child has been removed from their biological family. Then next we have the number of placements in the current removal episode. So that means how many homes have they been in, or treatment facilities have they been in since they've been removed from their biological family. And then lastly, we have the current placement setting, which is whether or not the child is in a group home, a foster home, a treatment facility, or what so be it. States and tribes are required to submit the AFCARS data twice a year based on 2 6-month reporting periods in order to receive federal funding.
How is AFCAR data used? It determines awards for adoption and setup programs, preparing the child welfare outcome reports, conducting the child and family service reviews, conducting Title IV foster care eligibility reviews, determining the allotment of funds for CHAPI foster care independence program, conducting trend analysis and short and long-term planning efforts, targeting areas for initial or increased technical assistance efforts, discretionary service grants, research and evaluation, and regulatory change. And finally, responding to requests for data from federal, state, tribal, and private agencies.
And before we move on, I kind of want to touch on a couple of these. So the first one where it says determining awards for the Adoption Incentives Program, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. So the Adoption and Legal Guardianship Incentives Payment Program, formerly called Adoption Incentive Program, recognizes improved performance in helping children and youth in foster care find permanent homes through adoption and legal guardianship. And so how AFCARS kind of ties into that is if we don't know how many kids are being adopted or going through the adoption process, we don't know how to properly fund those services. Another one that I want to talk about is the Child and Family Services Review. So the Child and Family Services Review, are periodic reviews of the child welfare system, which ensures conformity with child welfare requirements, determine what is actually happening to children and families as they are engaged in child welfare services, and assist states in helping children and families achieve positive outcomes. After a CFSR, or Child and Family Services Review, is completed, states develop a program improvement plan to address areas in their child welfare services that need improvement. And so how AFCARS is used with that is once after the Child and Family Services Review is conducted, then we can see where where the needs are in the foster care system and where we can properly allocate funds to help those needs.
Now, the John H. Chafee Foster Care Independence Program, also known as CFCIP, offers assistance to help current and former foster care youths achieve self-sufficiency. Activities and programs include, but are not limited to help with education, employment, financial management, housing, emotional support, assured connections to caring adults for older youth in foster care. And so how AFCARS Data is tied with Chafee is that they give Chafee data that is the ages of kids that are even qualified for their program, along with how much funding should be given to the program. And for a personal note, with how Chafee has supported me in my education, along with other things, it's helped me in financial management. They were one of the few people to help pay off for my first year of college, along with helping me with finding my own permanency in my apartment, so I could become more independent while I'm furthering my education in Bozeman at Montana State. And finally, just being one of the supports that I needed as a young adult and finding a way to secure my own future.
So next we'll be discussing a timeline. So as you can see, in December 2016, the Obama administration put out the 2016 final rule, which will require AFCARS to include new data elements relating to youth in foster care. Then we had an election, and with the new administration, they have decided to delay the implementation of the new data collection elements by 2 years. And then in April of 2019, they asked for public comment from child welfare agencies, advocates, and federal stakeholders across the nation as to whether or not these new data elements should be added or deleted. Then we have where the Children's Bureau released a notice of proposed rulemaking stating their plan, which is to eliminate some of the new data requirements by the Obama administration. And now they are taking more comments from the public on this new plan, which is what we're currently talking about. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the December 2016 final rule. So in December 2016, the Obama administration implemented new data requirements in order to improve outcomes for children in foster care. New data requirements that will be included are citizenship and immigration, sexual orientation, child financial and medical assistance, health, behavioral, or mental health conditions, and IDEA qualifying disability, sibling separation, and data elements related to Native American youth. So I want to talk a little bit about some of these and why they're so important. So one thing that's very important is sexual orientation, because knowing the sexual orientation of youth in foster care is important, so we know how to address their needs and meet their needs so they feel safe and cared for. Also knowing sibling separation is very important, so we know how to focus on reunification and what services needs to be put in place to kind of prevent sibling separation.
Along with adding to data elements related to Native American youth, coming from a state that have 7 federally recognized tribes in my state, this is an important key element. Now, what the Children's Bureau has recommended is that, quote unquote, we propose to remove the following data elements as described to reduce AFCARS reporting burden. And so what they mean by their burden is the burden to the social workers and to the state. And the reason to that is that collecting data is honestly a lot of work. And so for these bulletin points listed down below, it would be education stability, authority for placement and care responsibility, private agency living arrangement, juvenile justice involvement, transition plan and date, LGBTQ data, and finally data element regarding Native American youth and ICWA. Now going into depth in how ICWA is such an important thing for Montana, bring up like I said, there are 7 federally recognized Native Americans in Montana today. And how if they got rid of this, funding to support their native language go away forever. Cultures could soon fade away into the past, and tribal conflict could arise, and problems could get started in the state of Montana. With ICWA and AFCARS, they keep track. They try to keep track of what kids are in care. However, if this was to go away, kids from different tribes could get placed into a different tribe, and there could be conflict. They could be stripped away from their native language and lose their heritage.
So I'm gonna talk about why these data elements are important. So one main point is it ensures the foster care population is being represented correctly, and that's very important just to know how to first of all allocate funding for the needs and services within the foster care population. Because if you don't know who is in the foster care population, you don't know how to exactly allocate the needed funds to better serve. Also, recording this data gives child welfare agencies concrete evidence on the population they are serving, which all ties back to the funding.
These next two slides, we have alumni perspectives. The first perspective is from Brittany. She's Michigan's alumni. HHS must release and implement the newly acquired AFCARS data on sibling separation. If the Administration for Children and Families of the Department of Health and Human Services and policymakers implement this final rule, siblings across the country will have one last traumatic experience to worry about, being torn away from the people closest to them.
And next, I'm going to talk about another alumni perspective from Terry from Idaho. He says the federal government took an important step forward for LGBTQ plus youth and foster care by including data collection and reporting on this population in the December 2016 updates to the AFCARS. Unfortunately, citing concerns about burden to states, HHS has delayed the implementation of these updates, and they have signaled that the LGBTQ plus provisions in particular might be eliminated. Given that AFCARS has not been revised since 1993, it is past time for our federal data collection system to be updated. This data collection and reporting is critical to informing future policy decisions aimed at better supporting these youth in the future. And I just kind of want to talk about why it's important to include data on LGBTQ plus youth. I kind of talked about it earlier, but like I said, if we don't know who, like the ins and outs of who's in the system and who people in the system identify with, or what sexual orientation they identify with, we don't know how to better serve them. And knowing if youth are are part of the LGBTQ plus population is very important, like I said, because we need those supports, those services, because we're all human, and so we all should be treated the same. So knowing that will just allow more funding to be put in place to protect those LGBTQ plus youth.
What we can do as advocates, we can submit public comments until June 18th, 2019.
So just some tips about commenting. So we have basic commenting, and then we have better commenting. Basic is pretty much expressing simple support or dissent for regulatory action. And better is clearly communicating reasons behind comments, providing an outline of the impact this decision could have. You can also, within commenting, use your real stories.
Some more tips about commenting. Feel free to reach out to the agency with questions. The more questions, the better to be concise, but support your claims. And also base your justification on sound reasoning, scientific evidence, and or how you will be impacted. So include personal stories.
And some final tips about commenting. Adjust trade-offs and opposing views in your comment. There is no minimum or maximum length, and the comment process is not a vote. One well-supported comment is often more influential than 1,000 form letters.
So on this slide, we have an example of a less than effective comment. I'm angry that you all are taking away AFCARS data elements because this is important. You all clearly don't care about youth in foster care. Melvin, can you tell me how you feel about this comment?
So when I read this comment, I can tell that whoever wrote this is obviously very angry. And this comment is also opinion-based. And so how I see this comment being shaped for the better is turning your anger into something more constructive and more put together, using facts and pushing your point out in a way that is clear, concise, and also, including a bit of personal narrative. Why do you feel this way? But like I said, being clear and concise with what you're saying. How do you feel about it?
This comment, I can definitely tell that this person's very angry. However, you can turn that huge strong of an emotion into something passionate. Rewording this comment for sure. That's one of the key elements that I would have put in. Now, an example of an effective comment would be, as a Native American young person with lived experience in foster care system, it is important that my people are counted. Historically, the government has tried to erase us too many times. To make sure that this doesn't happen again, the experience of Native families in foster care must be accounted for. Tell me how you feel about that, Melvin.
So now this comment I really like because it includes personal narrative while also including the facts. And when you include personal narrative along with facts, it makes your story more compelling and people want to read it. So I do think this is an effective comment. What do you think about it?
I can tell that this person's very passionate about where their background is, and you can take that passion a long way. And just by looking at this comment alone, it instantly has grabbed my attention.
All right, so to submit a comment, you can click here, and I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the link so you guys can know exactly where to go and how to do it. You get to this website, you see right in the top right corner, it says comment now. So you can click that, and it'll take you to another page. And on this page, you can submit your comment. You can either type it in this box, or if you want, you can type it in a Word document and upload it. It is optional to include your name. You can also include your contact information if you would like, and if you are submitting on behalf of a third party, so whether that be a youth submitting it for an adult, or an adult submitting it for a youth, or a youth board coming together to write a letter, you can do one of those three.
So thanks for clearing that up, Melvin, because we have a listener that asked if a youth board as a whole could submit a comment, so they can do that.
Yes,
awesome.
Definitely. And I highly encourage you guys to, after listening to this webinar, encourage your friends to submit comments. Encourage everyone that you know to submit comments. Educate them. Pass along this knowledge so that we can, make this change together.
Okay, this is Brittany Barrows again. I'm going to be taking a look at some of the questions from the listeners. So a question from a listener. I don't understand what the big deal is. Why wouldn't they just collect all of this data? So that's a great question. So the reason that they are taking away some of these data elements, whether we agree with them or not, is because they want to eliminate the burden and cost on states. Some people feel that social workers should be using their time to invest in the children rather than investing in collecting data. So when the Children's Bureau came out with this notice of proposed rulemaking, that is why they said they want to stop collecting this data, is because they don't want to overburden the states.
Let's see here. We have a few questions. What can people do to bring awareness to this issue and make an impact?
So one of the ways that you can bring awareness to this is we will be recording this webinar and making it sure that it's recorded, so you can present this webinar to other people, and also they can make their own comment through the Federal Registrar by going to that link about commenting on why data collection elements should not be eliminated from AFCARS.
Thank you. And another question we have here is, what can people do to bring awareness to this issue?
So like I said, people, in order to bring awareness to this issue, we will have this webinar recorded. So showing your friends the webinar and then having them make public comments through the Federal Registrar through that link that we provided in the slideshow.
And also, you can also just take key points from this webinar and, share with other people that you may know, share it on social media, and also share the link that was provided to spread the word about this.
Wonderful. After June 18th, what other ways can we get involved?
Well, after June 18th, what you can do is if they don't release and implement the December 2016 final rule, I highly, highly encourage you to write a letter to Secretary H.H. Azar, the HHS Secretary. His name is Alex Azar II. And I can provide contact information because he is the head of AFCARS. And so what I recommend is for you to write a letter to him explaining why data elements should be included into AFCARS.
Let's see here. We've got a lot of great jobs, and I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening to our webinar. For more information, visit www.fosterclub.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.